Hello, I'm Julie Lyonn Lieberman. We had a whole community of African American fiddlers and classical players who now form string bands and got their work still playing at social functions in the area that they lived in. We also had a whole group of them that migrated to the cities. We pick up this thread again, and of course I did all of this research in the late 1970s when I worked on my book Blues Fiddle, and that book is now called Rockin' Out with Blues Fiddle. It took me another 10 years after that book came out to figure out what happened to these players. And actually, it's pretty interesting because they could play so many different styles. They became an excellent choice as employees for playing for the silent films. But when the talking films came out, overnight, they were put out of work. Now, it wasn't until I interviewed Milt Hinton for my National Public Radio series, The Talking Violin, that I learned about these players, about their fate. What happened to them? Well, Milt Hinton, as a youngster, bicycled through his neighborhood in Chicago delivering newspapers. And he actually delivered to our historic violinist, Eddie South's mother. He told me that these blues fiddlers, these eclectic style players, in order to hold on to their wonderful homes down the big boulevards in Chicago, met with each other on their back porches and rolled cigars. And they sold those cigars to the uppity uptown department stores, and that's how they were able to hold on to their homes. So that's why they disappeared in such a quick flash. So we have many recordings, and Old Hat Records has released they've fixed up the tracks and reissued some of the early players that I talk about in my book Blues Fiddle. So it isn't a new phenomenon, and now we zoom forward to about 2001, which is when American String Teachers Association invited a group of us to form a committee. Andy Dubchinsky was the chair, and Matt Glazer was on that committee, along with Renata Brott and myself and a few others. And we were given the task of preparing to involve our community of what they called non-classical string players in the ASTA conference for 2003, and to create an alternative styles competition. Now, we didn't like the title non-classical. That inferred a hierarchy, that the classical style reigned supreme and that everything else was not. And I, in fact, call classical music the classic music of Western Europe, just as jazz and blues are the classic musics of America, and rock and roll. And different fiddle styles, of course, that have been created on American soil. So music coming from a region like Indian music from East India, that is the classic music of India. So, okay, I sidetracked, but I wanted to get that in there. We named the field after struggling for terminology. We named it alternative styles. I personally, and none of us were totally happy with that, but I personally became more and more uncomfortable with that title, and I have been calling the field eclectic styles. So I call myself an eclectic styles specialist. Now, Darrell Anger has come up with a description of himself as a freestyle player. And so we're still inventing ourselves, and we're still growing and inventing the field. So, in this Capturing the Style series, I'm, in the next clip, going to talk a little bit about the different kinds of players we have out there and what distinguishes one from another, so we can just kind of get on some common ground together before we look at how in the world do you capture a style of music without imposing another style on it unconsciously. But how do you make choices as a player? See you soon.